Now call to order the committee of the whole on April 1st, 2024, time 7 p.m. Ben, would you please call the roll?
Member Orr?
Present.
Member Wyrick?
Here.
Member Owens?
Here.
Member McLeister?
Here.
Member Shroya?
Here.
Member Matheny?
Here.
6 present. Member Warren is absent.
Motion to excuse member Warren.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll start out with community and economic development. Ben, if you'd like to present that.
So over the past, I want to say 3 years now, we've been slowly rewriting and modernizing our zoning code chapter by chapter. And this is the next chapter. This initiative is something that was also included in the 2023 master plan as something the city wanted to continue. So the chapter before you today is the Parks and Institutional District. The major differences between what is before you today and what is currently written is that at the moment, almost everything in a park and institutional district is a conditional use, unless it's 300 feet or more from a residential use. Good luck finding a property that is 300 feet or more from a residential use in the city of North Canton. So that sort of led us to the question of, why do we have a parks district if parks are not allowed in the parks district? So how we've reworked this is that there will be 3 things allowed in parks and institutional: parks, schools, and churches. Then as conditional uses, we have residential facilities. So currently St. Luke's and Windsor on East Maple are zoned parks and institutional, and we didn't want to make them non-conforming, so we kept residential facilities as a conditional use. And then we separated out athletic facilities as a conditional use. So the university, our local school district, have stadiums, organized sports fields. Most people don't want those next to their homes, and most of those require larger amounts of parking that tend to bring crowds, so we kept those as a more restricted use with a higher bar to pass. Beyond that, it was really just updating the code to read a little better, more streamlined. There is something else that is escaping my mind, but I know I told it to somebody today, but it's escaping my mind. So if you have any questions, maybe it'll come back to me.
On Whitworth, where the baseball diamond is,
Mm-hmm.
is that in this as a,
Whitworth Park is currently zoned as a park and institutional district, yeah.
okay, with the athletic field? Because the athletic field causes a lot of problems up there with parking. They park where not supposed to park. If they would park just at the middle school, everything would be fine. But they park all the way around that circle, and we haven't enforced anything yet. We've put up some no parking signs, but no.
So that's exactly why we kept sports fields as a conditional use, is that any new ones that are put in would need to take into account parking and things like that. But zoning code is not retroactive, so we can't go back in time and force standards on things that already exist. But
Unless we change a charter, right? We could.
no, that's state law.
That's state law. But
Zoning
how
code
could
can't
we
be.
change that?
Well, I mean,
that
you mean
part-
change the parking specifically for Whitworth, or
Yeah,
change that
change
zoning
the
is
parking
retroactive?
for Whitworth, or maybe we make just green space. That is, we are lucky. I used to coach football up there. We're lucky. We haven't had a kid hit by a car, or the good Lord must be, looking down on us. They dart in and out, and you have 2 or 3 teams practicing there. You have a team practicing across from the middle school. You've got next to the shed down there, that one we just cleared trees out. You've got kids there. And it's going to be another year. We've got to do something with that.
I mean, that is a separate issue from the zoning thing.
Okay.
I don't have an answer to readily give you. We'd have to look into because it is, to my knowledge, legal to park on those streets
Well,
today,
not necessarily.
during the day.
Not, well, when do you have football practice? At night.
Well, but not after.
But there is no parking. We have no parking signs on Harmon, and that section of Harmon up there is only 20 feet wide. Where if you go down over the hill, it becomes 23 feet wide. All right, cars, it's a mess up there. But okay, I will bring it up when.
We're gonna have a parks master plan done next year, so we can certainly address it then.
Because that is a problem. And Claremont, we don't have anything, or at Northwood anymore. But we had thought maybe with the land behind Myers, we talked about a park, and maybe that could be another thing. But yeah, that baseball field causes a lot of problems.
John, I think you just have to look at maybe putting the no parking signs on one side of the street there.
Well,
because parking's available. I mean, you can park at the
Middle
school parking lot. There's plenty of parking.
but no one ever parks there.
It's laziness. I mean, my kid played there. And
Right.
I didn't park in the school. I parked
Well, I had
a lot
parked,
easier.
I had parked in the school when I coached there
Yeah.
for about 20 years, and it was, we are just so fortunate we haven't had someone hit. And you know how they, and then you get people who double park. Oh, I'm just going to be here for a second, and you got, it's a mess.
We'd probably have to go and ban parking on one side to start.
Okay, thank you.
I like the idea of keeping the athletic fields as conditional use because, I think almost exactly what John said, you do need to have a sustainable parking lot for athletic events. I mean, you build even a soccer field, it's going to attract a lot of people.
Right.
Proximity of neighborhoods is also pretty important. So I like the way that's spelled out. And I appreciate the cleanup. Because it's silly to not have a park in the market. Make a motion to recommend 3A to the planning commission.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And make a motion to postpone further consideration of item 3A until the planning commission's recommendation is received.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to finance, Stephanie's not here. Whoever would like to present this, would finance to present this or Ben?
So last week, through a team effort, and I do mean a team effort, we managed to refile our annexation on our west side here, just down West Maple, of what we've colloquially been calling the Heiser properties. To file that annexation, we filed a municipal type annexation, which means that all of the property was owned by the city and the city is annexing itself. But we would like to sell the properties as quickly as possible. So we're asking you all to start the process of transferring them back to the CIC so that they can be sold as soon as the annexation is done. We do, prior to the start of the annexation process, we had negotiated already one buyer for part of the property, and we're hoping to find buyers for the rest quickly.
And if we don't transfer it back, the only ways we can sell it is one via auction and two via RFP, correct?
Correct. Which an RFP is functionally a different type of auction.
Right, yeah.
And is that buyer still in place?
Yes, they are still interested. They are still in place. They have been miraculously understanding as this annexation has been delayed several times.
Yeah.
And they have submitted building permits and development plans already to building department for initial review in hopes that this goes through and they can become part of our city.
Perfect.
Good.
Any further discussion? Any other questions? We got a motion to move item 4A to the agenda. Second. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Okay, moving on to personnel and safety.
Discussion time. So what's on the table has kind of been brought to us around that way. So we'll go back a little ways when we asked residents to speak to us about reciprocity. There were a lot of local people that said, we want to vote in it. So we moved to a levy to fund the city. And residents said, no to that. So if we can increase your top line, the next step is to look at expenses. And that's what this is. This is a looking at one of the options we have to possibly reduce expenses. So Ben and his team have started the process. If you have a presentation,
We do, yes.
I'd like to get into the presentation. I'd like to have a long discussion about questions and ideas and then see where we go from there. Okay.
Okay. I do have slides. Next slide, please. So what we are hoping to have an in-depth discussion with you all about today is our options for emergency dispatching services, which is who picks up the phone when you call 911. So we'll start with some basic background about North Canton's emergency dispatching and what is regionalization, which is a term that we're going to talk about a lot tonight. So in Stark County, there are 7 dispatch centers, 5 that are regional and 2 that are not. So there's us, Canton, Central Dispatching, which is located in Nimishillen Township and is a regional center, the Red Center, which is located in Jackson Township and is a regional center, the Stark County Sheriff's Office, the City of Alliance, who also does some dispatching for some of their surrounding small townships, and then Minerva. Reports that were paid for by the Stark County Commissioners in both 2008 and 2001 recommended that Stark County, or not 2021, recommended that Stark County consolidate its dispatch centers to reduce costs to taxpayers and reduce call transferring. The city of North Canton has flirted with regionalization, so regionalization being we join with other communities to have a shared dispatch center. A couple times, most recently was in 2018. We got as far as having a request for services drafted and ultimately did not issue that request for quotes. Historically, North Canton has chosen to stay by ourselves. So we currently dispatch only for ourselves, no other agencies, with an asterisk on that because we help out Walsh a little bit.
And I think to interject there is because we have that same dispatch service.
Undoubtedly. And to Member Matheny's point, we have an excellent dispatch service and we've always wanted to retain control over that service to ensure the quality stays high. Next slide, please. So what does our current dispatch center do? So they handle an average of 17,700 calls for service. These are not emergency calls necessarily, but all of the activities of our emergency departments. So this would include 911 calls plus traffic tickets or service calls, house checks, lockout, everything that our emergency services provide for the community.
So is this emergency 911 and the non-emergency?
Correct.
Okay.
We currently employ 9 full-time personnel, 8 regular dispatchers, 1 lead dispatcher, and then we have up to 4 part-time personnel. That number fluctuates pretty regularly. In addition to answering the phone when people call, Dispatchers also currently handle a number of administrative functions for the department. So they, if you walk up to the window, they help you pay your parking ticket. If you need to file a public records request with the department, they help complete that public records request. They put in leads entries for our police officers. There are a lot of other things that they do that is not just answering the phone.
Can you explain leads?
Leads is an acronym that I will not get right, so I'm not going to try. But Frank can say it.
From our annual report.
Say again, Frank, I can't hear with the fan.
From our annual report, where we have a communication and records section on our website, LEAD is the law enforcement automated data system.
Thank you. It is restricted access information available to law enforcement agencies that is not available to the general public. So for 2024, the total projected cost for providing this service is a little over $1.1 million. And you have in your reports at your seats and also on this slide our costs over the past couple years. The average for those years has been $841,000. And I believe Gina wants to add some color to these numbers.
Prior to 21, in the budget, the dispatch was part of the police benefit. So we started splitting that out in 2021 to track it separately, and that has sort of become a little bit more finite over the last 3 years. So we have a pretty good delineation between the two actions.
And I'll just add some color on personnel. We heard Ben mention we have up to 4 part-time. We currently only have 1. Part-time is difficult to staff. We've got a lot of turnover in that, working a lot of different shifts and slower hour and not high.
Next slide, please. So why talk about this right now? If we're happy with our dispatch center, we feel they provide an excellent service, why should we discuss this? Well, there are 3 factors that lend right now, this moment in time, to be a point where it would be beneficial to talk about regionalization again. So number 1 is that the dispatch center's radio consoles need to be replaced and upgraded. And that's a capital investment of $320,000 over the next 3 years. If we were to regionalize, we would not incur that capital expense. Second, the city will be switching phone systems later this summer, not only to hopefully improve our call quality, but also the new quote we got is much more affordable than our current provider. The most complex part of that phone switch is ensuring that the county 911 line keeps ringing at our dispatch center. If we were to regionalize, that would no longer be an issue we would have to solve. 3, as we discussed when talking about facilities earlier this year, the North Canton Police Department is in need of space. And there is the potential that if we were to regionalize, by them occupying the space dispatch currently occupies, and if the administration council's office makes a concerted effort to empty out our storage area, we could free up to 2,000 square feet of space for them to occupy, and then we may not need to relocate any city staff outside of the current city hall building. So those are sort of the 3 reasons to think about doing this right now.
What consoles?
Say again.
How many consoles?
So we currently have 2. The full quote there would be to buy 3, which would go with, of the options we're about to discuss, option 3. And that'll make more sense here in a moment.
What month would we be porting the phones?
Oh, you mean our regular phone system?
Yeah.
So we started deployment about a week ago. Our contractor has to work on coordinating with the phone companies, transferring phone numbers and whatnot. We're not supposed to go live until September. And I believe the consoles are on hold till June 15th.
Okay, just purely out of an expense control question. Can you stop the phone switch and look what we got?
Yes, but you'll pay more because the new vendor is considerably cheaper than the old vendor. Let me rephrase. Regardless of whether we regionalize dispatch or not, the new phone system will be cheaper than our current phone system.
Okay.
So we're having quality issues with that. So we're in a better system, we have better quality, and better price.
How old is that, our current system?
I would say it was about 2018. 18, what was that in? It's the first time we switched from analog phones to voice.
Analog to,
VoIP, voice over internet protocol phone. It was the first time we switched to that type of phone. They were good then, with better technology now.
Yeah, our current system is server based, so we have a physical box in our city. The new system will be cloud based, so we will no longer, if we lose power, we won't lose phones anymore, as long as we have internet still on a hotspot on somebody's cell phone.
Going back to the facilities plan and the police needing more space, wasn't one of the reasons that we were planning, we're going to try to keep police in the current city hall building where they are, because wouldn't there have been like a lot of additional expenses for fiber and I don't know, like
The things I've
backup
already-
systems or something because of the dispatchers? Like, would that be a concern still if we didn't have dispatch?
It will be less of a concern.
Okay.
Relocating a police department, regardless of whether they have dispatch with them or not, will be more expensive than relocating administrative staff, because administrative staff don't need holding cells or a garage or firearms lockers. They just inherently, the police department has more dangerous things that need
Right.
a higher standard of building.
Okay.
But yes, we wouldn't necessarily need the county 911 fiber line anymore, depending on what our post-regional setup looks like.
Thank you.
Any more questions before we get into the options? Okay. So we're going to go through the three options that we believe exist for continuing to provide dispatch service. So option one is to keep our own Norcom dispatch center just for ourselves as we have it right now. This allows us to retain local control over quality, staffing levels, and the services provided. At present, I will not deny to anyone who asks that our dispatch center provides a incredible level of non-emergency services that we will not get at a regional center. And if we were to regionalize, there will be changes to how the police department functions, how calling the non-emergency line functions, and things like getting your car unlocked at 3 a.m. might be harder. However, the costs will only continue to increase. 95% of our current costs are personnel, and they're part of a collective bargaining agreement. And historically, we've seen those increase at least 3% a year. If we do choose to retain a dispatch center Norcom for ourselves, our recommendation would be that it be separated from the police department and treated as its own separate service and department, given its own supervisor, just to ensure that it's functioning as best it can, because I mean no ill will towards our police chiefs, both sitting here, but I think they will admit that they are not professional dispatchers and don't necessarily know everything that goes into answering a 911 call. So we could probably benefit from a professional supervisor. Option two. Option two is we could join an existing regional center. So this could significantly reduce our costs and by extension, our residents' costs for receiving dispatch services. It is likely that for most average emergency call users, you would never know whether the person who picked up your 911 call is sitting in the Red Center in Jackson or sitting in City Hall at North Canton. However, as I said on the last slide, we will inherently have changes to your non-emergency callers, your people who are used to calling dispatch for a house check, for a lockout, for all the other extra services our police department provides. The department, therefore, would likely need to hire at least one administrative assistant to man the non-emergency line during the day when most of those things occur, and to pick up the administrative tasks we talked about earlier that dispatch currently does for the police department. So paying your parking ticket, filing a public records request, those sorts of things.
Now, is it envisioned that the non-emergency line would be answered by that administrative assistant, or is that strictly manning the window?
My envisioning would certainly be that during their hours they answer the non-emergency line.
But obviously not after like 5 o'clock.
We would need to really sit down and figure out what happens after their shift end. Does it roll over to a cell phone held by the sergeant on duty? Does it go to a phone on the wall that if there's an officer standing in the bullpen, when it rings, they will answer it, but if not, sorry, go to voicemail? We would need to figure that out.
Okay.
On the bottom of the screen here and in your packets are what pricing information we have received so far from the regional centers and why we say there is a potential for significant cost savings. I just numbered the potential agencies we might join, as I wasn't trying to get into a discussion tonight about which one is the best one to pick. But the four that we are reaching out to and considering are the Stark County Sheriff's Office, CENTCOM, which is Nimishillen Township, the Red Center, Jackson Township, and Canton, City of Canton. Yeah.
You can tell us which one is which.
Not tonight.
Now, have they we anticipate our costs would go up if we keep it the same. Have they given us lock pricing for a certain amount of time? Because their price is going to go up.
Their price is going to go up. It depends on who we go with in the end. So, Red Center is a council of government structure. So, every locality that is a member shares the cost equally with an asterisk. So, if you're a larger municipality with more population, you have a larger share of the cost, right? But everybody's prices go up together. If we were to join any of the others that aren't Red Center, we would just be a client. So there is the possibility that they could raise our prices, but not necessarily raise other people's prices. For those, we would probably look at having a contract of 1 to 3 years at a time that locks in a price for a set period. From what preliminarily I've heard from other agencies, cost increases are not frequent. So one agency I talked to didn't have a price increase for 10 years.
But they incurred probably a lot of expense during labor, 3%, 4%, whatever they increased.
Perhaps, yeah.
Labor. So, okay.
No, we will not be immune from inflation if we regionalize. The obvious question if we were to regionalize, is what happens to our staff. In preliminary conversations with the 4 centers, 3 of the 4 have all, without me prompting, asked, will your staff come to us? We'd love to have them. So we are hopeful that if we went this route, we could find job placement for all who want it. And some of our dispatchers may want to apply for the administrative assistant positions that get created to stay with us. That would be up to them.
Which we're looking at two positions maybe.
Yeah, that would need to be ferreted out more if that's the route we want to go.
Okay.
Option 3. Next slide. Option 3 is we could attempt to transition into a regional center ourselves. So we have already been approached by at least 2 other agencies in the past that are asking if we would be willing to take on another agency. So there is a potential appetite out there for another regionalized center. There are hurdles that would have to be overcome before we feel we'd be ready to do that. So first, we would probably need to physically expand our dispatch center. So at most right now, we can fit about 3 dispatchers at a time comfortably. Certainly to take on a significant number of other people that would make this economies of scale worth it, we would need more than 3 dispatchers at a time. Second, we would have to buy additional equipment, hire additional staff to man those new stations we made space for. Third, we would need to convince other people to join and commit, some of whom are locked into timed contracts. Like you just asked me about 1 to 3 years. Some people are out looking right now. Some people won't be looking for 2 years. We'd need to figure out, how quickly could we make the economy of scale work? Particularly if we need to build a new facility to make this possible, we'd want upfront commitment from other people that we're all coming in together. Fourth, just as if we were to keep it just for ourselves, dispatch would need to be separated from the police department into its own separate department with its own supervision, because it would essentially become a special revenue service. It is partially funded by clients buying our service. There's also questions about if we can become an approved FEMA regional dispatch center. We would need to look into that more. So while this is theoretically an option, it would take a lot of work and a lot of capital investment that I'm not sure we're financially positioned to put in right now.
With the way we're set up now, we're talking about adding a 3rd console. Even with the 3rd, we couldn't take on another smaller community or nothing at all right now.
I think you could comfortably take on a smaller community. I think our issue is going to be that the price I'm going to charge you is not going to be competitive with Red Center or CENTCOM or CanCom.
Okay.
Just because our economy of scale isn't the same.
Makes sense.
Now, using any of these other systems, I'll call them, how much time will that be added on? So we call 911, now they know our town, we're getting top quality service. What type of guarantees? How much longer will it take them to get to because it's going to go to a center, then it's got to go back to us and then go.
Well, so the regional centers would be tied into our radio system, just as our dispatch is right now. And it is true that the dispatchers will not be as familiar necessarily with our streets and our layout. It's certainly at least not at the beginning, although as the longer we're there, the more familiar they become. The time talking between them and us is not going to increase it. Like the radio the added time it takes radio waves to travel from, say, Nimishillen Township to here is not going to be noticeable to you.
Right.
So we don't think that it would increase response times? I mean, initially.
Initially, there may be some limited response time increase in, them learning our streets and where to respond to, but having done a ride along with the fire department is dispatched by the address that comes through on their CAD. Like, they are reading the address and going to that address, and they're the ones who need to know the city like the back of their hand to drive there and get there. As long as the dispatcher accurately and promptly reports to them the correct address, they will get there.
And as I was listening to John talk and, shake my head in agreement, I was thinking about, as I was looking down here at my cell phone, if I call 911 on my cell phone right now, correct me if I'm wrong, this goes to the regional center, not to our dispatch center. Is that correct?
So we're tied into county 911.
Okay.
And all 911 calls go to the county first and then get transitioned out to their appropriate
Even
center.
on a landline?
Well, what I'm getting at is, like, the electronic waves go to the county and then come out to us.
Gotcha.
Some will get auto-routed directly to us. Some will get picked up by the county and then transferred to us.
Okay.
Unless I've mischaracterized that, Frank.
Currently, the 911 system, there's then at AT&T, does not have the technology for the 911 calls to be sent to the centers as each community center as it's set to be. So they do go to a central point where they get sent out from. And that's no matter what regional center you use, whether it's our center or one of the regional centers, it goes to that central point where entering and gets sent out.
Even if, let's say I lived in North Carolina, you don't give up your telephone number, you still have the phone number from down there. Would that 911 still go to the center, or would it go down there?
No, the national 911 is smart enough to figure out
Okay.
generally where you are.
Well, it's a question, you never know.
The 911 triangulates based on the town. So when you're out of town, your number will go to the local area you're in.
Oh, okay.
Certainly a lot
Can we,
to digest here. I think that, I think it's really easy to put numbers on calls. It's really easy to put numbers on costs associated with that. I think that we need a longer conversation about the cost of put numbers on. And that's the cost of the residents, the cost of service, employees. And I would like to have further discussion, but I would like to see administration proceed with receiving all of the information. We're going to make a valid decision here that impacts the entire city. But I want to make sure that we have all the information. I want time to hear from the residents, their thoughts about it, and their thoughts about funding this, or how we're going to continue to fund everything that they want. There's a lot of things to take into consideration here, and we do have one of the best dispatch centers.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So let's look at all the costs.
Well, I think the thing that's sad is, so as you accurately point, we do have one of the best dispatch centers with some truly fantastic employees. The thing that I'm scared about is one, the decrease in service, but two, if this goes away and we decide to go this direction, with the capital costs, we will probably never get this done. Or it'd be a really tough hill to climb. And so we're making a very important decision. I mean, the sad reality is that, just as you eloquently said before, we tried to increase the top line, we got to now cut the bottom line.
There's a lot of things to look at.
Yeah.
I think we've got a couple more that we're going to discuss a little later. If there's no other questions or comments, I think we've covered a lot.
Good. I appreciate option number 3. Let's be realistic. That's not in our future. We're not going to spend money on that. I think everybody can agree. I appreciate the work that's done, but it's just not going to happen. How many calls, and anybody will know this, how many emergency calls do we get on our non-emergency lines?
Sorry.
How many emergency calls do we get on our non-emergency line?
That would require me to do some deeper diving that I haven't done. Sorry.
No, that's all right. But we need to look into that, because if we're going to staff a non-emergency unit, we need to know the information behind that specifically, but then we need to know the size and the cost of that. We need to drill down into that. I think that's all that I have. I certainly think we should move forward and look at the options. I think in all our discussions tonight, everything is on the table. So it doesn't hurt to research to look at it all.
Now, with the nursing homes on Applebrook, 3 or 4 of them up there, what percentage of those calls are going through our system right now? I mean, they're all going through, but how many are really emergencies other than picking up Mrs. Smith because their help doesn't want it? Because that does happen. Could we sub that type of business out?
I think you're going a different
Yeah.
direction. Excuse me, I may interject. Those are fire and EMS or EMS calls, and those would be, separated out to a certain degree, because each month we get a report from the fire department as to the types of calls they respond to, be it fire or paramedic or EMS. So that, I think you could find another category for, dispatching, but those calls are still going.
Okay.
As time goes on.
And
But when the time's appropriate, I like to add a few observations on my own.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, one other question. So we don't have all the part-time jobs filled. We have 1, right? Are the other centers having problems getting help also?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there.
Sorry, Ben.
Yeah. That's another,
Hiring dispatchers is tough across the board.
Okay.
And retaining them because of the stress of what is demanded of them.
I think that's why 3 of the 4 I talked to asked me of their own volition,
Well, right.
will your people come?
We're very fortunate to retain the ones that we bring.
Step off that. Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to bring to everybody's attention that last report I have is the 2022 police report. And it's a very detailed section on communications and records, and I won't read that to you tonight, but I recommend everybody to take a look at that. It's pages 8 and 9, about the services that are provided by our dispatchers and everything that they are involved in on a day-to-day basis. But here's some of the things that I was thinking about. When you think about the pros for going, for outsourcing, again, what will our savings be? I think that's been presented here a little bit tonight. Again, what is the cost included in the outsourcing? So what cost will come to us, even though there could be a savings somewhere along the line? I also think about how will this improve our communications? And not only with our jurisdiction, but will we be able to communicate better with other jurisdictions? If one of our officers are on the traffic stop and we have records and information on that person, but are we connected to other agencies who may have stopped this person before and may not have the information available for us? How many personnel will be assigned to handle just police calls alone? And how many personnel will be handling just fire and EMS calls and another dispatching service? Will this help us reduce our training costs, for our personnel and our dispatchers? And will the outsourcing provide access to, again, searching other records if our officers encounter an individual that we may not have a lot of information on it, but somebody else does. Something else to think about, and we touched upon it, is the future employment of dispatchers. Will all our dispatchers be offered employment and training? They are join another agency. When I think about some of the cons of it, in some, we don't have to worry about holding facilities. Okay, we don't have a jail here, so take that out of the question. It wasn't talked about, but someone might think that we still have a jail system here, and we don't. That dissolved many, many years ago. We book everybody out of the Stark County Jail. Or before we do that, sometimes we process them here at the PD and then transport them out to the jail. Reducing support after hours emergencies. I think that question was brought up after that. So will the public have access to this building at City Hall in order to take refuge for one's safety? I think that's something you have to keep in mind. And then to one other thing, whether we have at least 1 to 2 people on the day staff, because someone does have to go to the bathroom. Somebody has to go and have a lunchtime. Someone could be out on vacation. Someone could have a day off. Someone could go home sick. You have to have, I don't want to use the word redundancy, but do you have 2 deep leadership or do you have 2 deep support for that day shift? And when that starts at 6:30 to 2:30, or what do you do after hours? Are we going to be able to supply someone in that administration part there when someone walks in and needs help with directions or to pay a parking ticket after they get home from work? Do we extend somebody till at least 10:30 at night to help cover after hour emergencies? Someone brought up to the point to me, well, can't somebody just go to the fire department? We don't technically have a full-time fire department to handle someone walking across the street to report an emergency. It doesn't quite make sense to me. And I question too, just as you think about things, do we lose authority for our staff and for our service that we provide? On one hand, I think our police department becomes a customer of regionalization, right? And how does that affect our officers that are supervisors or leaders in our department making decisions on the road or on the speed of a call, things like that? And I think you brought up a point, Mr. McLeeser, again. It's too expensive to return to dispatching if we do outsource it. Because I think once it's gone, and we are putting our initiative and our efforts and our finances in supporting something like that. Very hard because now you're talking about all new equipment, new people, training, costs, things like this. We have a very good computer-aided dispatching, lead supervision. Again, how's this going to affect records management in the long run? Think about those things. That's all I'm saying. Again, will our customer service be compromised? I think some questions to think about again is really what is our focus looking at long-term sustainability of maintaining an important element of our safety services here, and that's the safety of our community. So really, what is our goal? I'd like to have council think about that, and as Mr. Matheny alluded to, provide considerable, careful consideration, planning, and I hope we have a thorough evaluation. What's really going to be the bottom line? And I think I touched upon this. Again, what will an outsourcing agency, what are they willing to provide for? And sometimes we have to think also about looking beyond our personnel. And because we are facing a time for upgrading our dispatching console, and that cost, I think, was provided, about $320,000 to upgrade that. We've been able to establish a great Marks radio system, and again, continue our training costs for the personnel on the road and in our dispatch. And just for us to consider too, how do we maintain a state-of-the-art communication center that we have? Okay. A lot of equipment has a sunset in its life. And I think we touched on many of the things that our dispatchers do beyond walk-in assistance and paying parking tickets and giving directions and, processing record requests. Again, handling phone calls just for general assistance. The thing too that we have unique is many of our dispatchers know our clientele. And obviously they know our area of our city very well. And before we had female officers, oftentimes we had to rely on our female dispatchers to search our arrestees, our female arrestees. And that may not be an issue now. Thank goodness we have a more diversified police department with female officers doing a great job for us. And I think too, we mentioned that agencies do continue to struggle to hire good people to be dispatchers. And again, we talked briefly at the end about transitioning the police department into a revenue source rather than an expense. And that was something that could be considered, but it's up to City Council to think about. So just some of my observations, some things I was thinking about as we go through this, but careful consideration, planning and thorough evaluation. What's our bottom line? If it's really cost, then let's just be, let's face it. It's a costly operation, but there again, how does that affect the service that we've been able to give for so many years? Allow me to just share a few thoughts with what I've been thinking. Thank you.
Thank you. Try. And to that point, we need to get the rest of the numbers. We need to look at that, and we need to look at the other costs that we can't put numbers to. So I'd like to make a motion to direct the administration to proceed with receiving, evaluating quotes for regionalized dispatch services, and evaluating the additional costs that we're going to need to cover the police department once dispatch moves.
Right, seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to streets and alley.
Do you want to take this one? Do you want me to?
All right, slide one. So our annual paving levy is up for renewal this year. It expires at the end of this year. So I want to say very clearly that if it is not renewed, there will be no street levy money next year, or replaced or increased, whatever action counts. If there's nothing on the ballot, there will be no money next year. So to start, let's look at our recent annual paving program. So we have 94.5 total miles of roadway in the city. 15 of those are grant eligible, we consider them. So that would mean major thoroughfares, Main Street, Maple Street, things that our wonderful engineer who brings in almost $5 million a year in grants can actually get grants for. The remaining 79.5 are what we would consider residential streets. So they're ineligible for major grant sources. At our current paving rate from 2023, when we did 1.5 miles, we would pave each mile of those 79.5 ineligible every 53 years, which is just simply not enough to keep up with Ohio winters. As you can see from the chart on screen, the amount of miles we have been able to pave has been steadily dwindling over the course of the most recent levy. That was especially exacerbated by COVID-19 and supply chain costs that made asphalt much more expensive. So our current levy is a 1 mil levy that raises $388,651 per year. Our proposal as written in the ordinance that was given to you tonight, but certainly not set in stone, is for a 2 mil replace and increase levy. So we would replace the 1 mil that exists and increase by another mil to get to 2. That would raise just over $1 million a year. I'll come back to the first bullet point, but to jump down to the second bullet point, that would pave approximately 5 miles of residential road a year, which would get us to a replacement rate of once every 16 years, assuming we, repaved each road individually. What Gina would like to discuss with you all this evening is the potential of going for a continuing levy instead of the traditional replace every 5-year model. And so I will punt to Gina.
If you replace a levy, you bring the millage value back up to current. So we've been renewing these levies, which means the value of that mill is continuing to decrease every 5 years. And it's about every 10 to 15 years that you're requesting a replacement. So we're at that point where we're requesting a replacement, and then we're talking about adding an additional because we recognize 1 mill is not doing the job. So if we replaced it and added a mill, it would be a continuing, which means you would still probably be on the same 10 to 15 year ask, but not every 5 years. And you wouldn't be in a situation where you would not have street letterman. It's restricted. It has to be used for paving. It cannot be used for wages or personnel or any other kind of cost. It is strictly set aside in its own fund and has to be used for paving.
Is it increase in the value of homes every 3 years?
Say again, Dave, does it increase?
Every 3 years as the auditor reevaluates property?
So because of House Bill 920, it does not. It will continue to decline even from this point. The only increase we would recognize is on new valuation, new homes being built, new developments, commercial, industrial.
So currently a 5-year, when it's renewed, maintains its original first-year value, or it updates to current value with the renewal
It maintains its current original value
for 5 years?
of dollars, and the effective millage goes down, yes.
So we would lock in this $1 million. So we would be locked in at this roughly $1 million level.
15 years.
Yeah. Well, until it's renewed, which would likely be in 15 years, would be when the city would look to increase it again.
But I think to Dave's point, which was what I was trying to surmise as well, if you have something you're renewing every 5 years, it stays at that value.
Right.
That was my question as well.
Is 2 mil enough?
Is 15 mils enough?
Right. We had a decent winter this year. Last year was rough. We don't know what it's going to be like, but so many times we underfund these things. $300,000 drop in the bucket. For $1 million, a little bit more, but is 2 mil enough?
300,000 15 years ago was probably enough. Today it's just not enough.
No.
In anticipation of your question is why we asked Rob to be here tonight. So I will now punt to Rob to answer the question.
Yeah, okay.
One of the things, with no economy of scale, and you mentioned each road would get paved on average every 16 years. One thing with paving is there's a tremendous economy of scale. If you can do 2 miles with 300,000, you can do, it's not the proportion. I mean, the larger the program, the better price you're going to get. I think we could take advantage of that. That'd be nice to have a lot more, but we also have to look at it realistically. On the ballot last month, 4 municipalities in Stark County, the road levies failed. So we want to put something out there that's palatable for folks to vote on too. Yeah, I'd like 10 to something.
Yeah, whatever.
But that would be very unrealistic.
Yeah.
So we tried to balance and it's the same discussion basically we had a year ago when we were denied on that a year in advance. So, and the other thing is have to keep working hard and being successful with getting the grants for the main roads. That is such a key that we can get those, the bulk of that covered, not with one grant, maybe two or even three. Then we can put the bulk of the levy funds back into the neighborhoods. It's very difficult to get a grant for a road this year.
The last couple of years, inflation has always been top of mind for everybody. Are you seeing big increases this year in asphalt
So
costs?
far this year, and the programs I've looked at have been pretty comparable to last year. So far, we haven't seen, and really, you can almost equate that to what we pay at the pump. We'll be paying that much more now than we were next year. Pretty similar. But again, that can change. Something in the Middle East, whatever administration, not to make it political, but whatever happens in November, national level, will probably affect petroleum prices. So don't really have a crystal ball. We're at the mercy of all those things.
I wonder if residents would see me continuing as at least some surety that it's not gonna be another road levy show up on their ballot in the next 10 or 15 years.
I don't understand the continuing. The library has a continuing levy and we don't go on the ballot anymore. So why would we be going on the ballot still in 10 or 15 years?
In 15 years, if $1 million that this 2 mil levy would be bringing in
Yeah,
would maybe not be enough in 15 years.
gotcha.
You may need more money.
Okay,
So
okay.
you would replace it with
Okay.
bringing it back up to current 2 mil value,
Gotcha.
maybe.
Thank you.
But let's say we put it on the ballot, it passes. I voted for it. When's my road gonna get done? How do we decide what roads get done? Do we go by wards or the worst shaped road, or what do we have?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think you do your worst first.
Right.
The longer you put those off, instead of 1.5 inch mill and fill overlay, maybe you're looking for full depth. And each year we don't do something on a road that's deteriorating, you drive up that cost.
Right.
But something we've had a lot of success with in stretching that 300 some thousand was also concentrating the paving to maybe just a couple areas within the city. And the last thing we want to do is the mobilization costs. Take those 2 rollers, the big paving machine, and drag them all over town. Just to do 2 streets in every ward that are far apart from each other. You're wasting a lot of money dragging them. So really would recommend if it passes, kind of keep to that plan, kind of sit down together and come up with a program that accomplishes that goal. That minimizes the mobilization all over town, be it keeps everything in an area or two, but knowing that, okay, we didn't get to Ward 1 this year, but your time's coming.
Right.
And then also, the example I talked last week is the Peachtree Water Line project. If we're getting that done with water grants, we're replacing water. We're getting 6,000 feet over a mile of streets done outside of what this levy would cover. We've got water money and grants and covering that. So sometimes when streets are getting paved in a ward, the resident may not know what fund covered it, but at the end of the day, the road's flat. So
That's right.
kind of do that balancing act as well.
They've gotten so much better at making the curbs and doing the paving. I think they're well trained, and we've done
The next item we'll talk about too is the curb.
yeah.
To Rob's point about mobilization, it could cost us $5,000 to $10,000 to move one piece of equipment to another location, believe it or not.
Really?
That's the backstory that sometimes the public doesn't realize, and how he's trying to pull those costs down for you. But that's the cost of doing business at sometimes. So by doing it in a concentrated area, as he suggested, it saves us money a little bit.
This may not be the appropriate time to ask, and we could always do this one off. But we have our own paving machine, do we not?
We do.
And because I remember about a year or so, or maybe it was 2 years ago, we talked about how we did Baker Court. And I remember this was geared towards more the smaller, narrower
Right,
size.
that's one of the things we talked about internally and talked about it today. In order to stretch the 300,000 that we have,
Mhm.
it's very expensive for our big paving contractors to get their giant machinery, 9 foot wide out. The bid super high, they want no part of it.
Right.
Dump trucks don't fit, the trees. Our smaller equipment, our guys have had a lot of success with it, and we bought the machine for that. The other thing we talked about is in order to stretch our dollars, maybe a certain road isn't too bad, but it's got a 50-foot stretch of the northbound lane is shot.
Mhm.
So the shade tree was there, it's coming unraveled. Maybe back in the day, it was the first road that was paved, or first load that morning got too cold, or in the spring, whatever. We can go in and mill off just that one lane, 12-foot wide for 130 feet, and our guys go and put that back. Yeah, they got a real dark black patch, but it's gonna ride smooth.
Right.
And buy us that extra time. The whole road doesn't need it. That's one of the things we're actually looking at for this year.
That's cool. And so I was gonna ask about going a step further. Is there a certain width where we don't want to use our machine on? Like, is there cost savings for our guys to do it in-house with that machine, or do you not want to
I
do
would
it?
think definitely the alleys. Our guys have had a lot of success. They enjoy doing it. And Matt Morrow has a list of alleys he's paving this year. Some of the ones he's done the last two. Yeah, they're excited to get going. The asphalt plants open another month.
Okay. Cool.
I do like the idea of continuing the stability in the program.
People question that because there's no sunset. I mean, we're always gonna need roads repaved, but does that pose a problem?
I think it definitely makes it more difficult to pass.
Mhm. And that's concerning. Because if this goes down, let's say we had the issue with the county before, we listened to the residents about reciprocity, we put a income tax increase on, that didn't go so good. I mean, we're gonna be at assessment a year from now.
It's difficult because, you look at, and we have a history of underfunding our levies, which drives me nuts. But we're gonna come to a point that what is too much of an ask? Because in my opinion, 2 mils is not enough. It doesn't, if you look at paving since 2018, it's double.
Mhm.
We're paving half the amount of roads. It's not gonna get better over the next 5 years. Our dollars are only gonna stretch so far, so what is the right millage to ask for? I don't know. But if we're asking for a proposal, I think we should ask to evaluate more than just 2 mils. I think we should look at some other numbers as well. If we're gonna evaluate stuff, am I wrong? Can we get multiple evaluations on multiple different?
Yeah, so this first step in the process, we have to ask the auditors to certify to us in writing the amount of money that would be raised by any given scenario we may choose to put on the ballot. So at this point in the process, we can absolutely send 1, 2, 3, 4 scenarios to the auditor, and they'll give us all of them back. Ultimately, we would only send one to the ballot, but at this point, you could ask for multiple. Yeah.
And I would suggest that we get 4 different villages just to spread it out to see what it is. And
Matt, we did ask for, and I think it is included in your packet.
okay, I didn't.
Wait, guys, wait. I
Ask
can't
the
hear.
county to provide numbers to what the renewal plus adding 1 mil, renewal plus adding 1.5 mil.
Okay,
renewal plus
yeah.
2, and then we also did the same with replacement.
Okay.
Replacement plus 1, replacement plus 2. So we do have those numbers. Replacement plus 2 mils would be 3 total mils, and that's about 1.5 million a year.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, thank you very much.
Why do you think the other road levies failed in other communities?
It'd just be pure speculation. I haven't had a chance to talk to my colleagues in
Uh-huh.
the townships or communities, but probably just the state of the economy. You
Yeah, I
only
mean-
get so much blood out of a turnip.
I mean, the roads,
Out there in schools and
our roads are decent compared to Canton. I don't know if you've driven through Canton lately or down Cleveland Avenue or Market Avenue. It's terrible, you know. You go to Alliance, it's terrible. You go to Jackson Township, some of those roads are terrible. You know, other than the main ones that get the grants and stuff.
yeah, I kind of take some pride in the condition of our streets here.
Our streets are great compared to others.
That's politely said, thank you.
As we can.
Yeah,
we do
they're-
what we can control here, so.
Other communities struggle too.
Yeah, they do struggle. I'm saying they do.
I think we're trying to come up as Gina and Rob and the team has put together, trying to provide something that we feel that our community would be supportive of. And I certainly understand us all watching our budgets and things like that, but our infrastructure is so important to get our people safely to and from locations in the city. And we felt that what was presented tonight,
It's great stuff.
the council would be a good solution at this time that we're facing.
Yeah, I just don't want to be in a situation where 15 meals would be fantastic.
Yeah, right, but, you know,
So excited.
the,
but it would never pass.
no, it would never pass.
And so it's sort of like, you know,
And we're being watched by the community more than we ever have
one
been.
piece of heart meal kitchen pie is fantastic. I'd love to eat the whole pie.
Yeah, right.
It's not gonna happen.
No.
So I take the one piece.
We just happen to live in that community where we have freeze and thaw, okay, on our road.
Well, everybody has it.
Northeast Ohio, and we're the upper Canton, lower Akron area, UCLA, the county, and we get our share of the weather even
Yep.
that other parts don't. But,
Again, the current events, whatnot, Middle East, Washington, do we want to be energy independent or not? Decision weighed on any of our hands. It's hard to say where we'll be in a year, 2, 3.
Right, we have no way of knowing.
When do we have to make this decision? Like when is the language due for the ballot? August 7th? Thank you.
Thank you, yes.
I'm not suggesting that we wait that, just,
So if council would like to put something on the ballot without skipping any reading, so 3 readings for all steps, we would need to pass something out of committee tonight. If council is comfortable with not having 3 readings, say for this first certification period, we could talk about it in the next committee and make a decision then, but you only have 2 readings, next committee, one,
because of summer break.
because of summer break, yeah.
If we move this to council, move it as just a renewal as opposed to a renewal and an increase, can we amend it in council to make it continual?
Yes, with the caveat that at the point we pass a resolution requesting the auditor for certification, we can only put on the ballot whatever we asked for certification for. So, yes, you can amend it on the floor up to that point.
Okay. Because I don't know that there's consensus on continuing or replace an increase tonight. And I would like to see it on the council agenda. So we're going to move forward, have 3 readings before we to.
Do we want to move forward with it as it's written, as the replace and increase? And then decide about changing?
Continuing.
Well, they would both be replace and increase. The difference
The
would be 5
continuing.
years or continuing.
This is written for the 5 years.
Correct.
Because I agree with you, Matt. I think that's another layer. You know, what we're asking for an increase, and
It's
then are we
tough,
doing
yeah.
something that makes it seem like we don't want to give you the option to vote no on it? That's not the right thing to do.
No.
It would be nice to continue, but I don't know how palatable that is for the environment.
I like that it was presented to us as an increase, and I'm happy, Rob, that you came tonight. Because that was the question that I asked about this, like, the same question everybody else asked, is that enough money? And you're right, like, it's never enough money, but if we ask the voters to increase this, are we gonna then be telling people, I'm sorry, we can't do stuff because we have enough money, things that seem reasonable that we should do? I think that while it's never enough money, this is a number that you feel comfortable with.
I think there's a little added pressure to, we start missing out on grant opportunities for Main Street and Apple Grove or Everhard. We'll have to, look at taking that neighborhood money back out to those streets. As long as those opportunities are there, and I don't see that they're going away, it will be okay. And again, that economy of scale is so hard.
But that incremental increase in what you're capable of doing, and you add that increased funding, makes it even more that you can do when you apply that economy of scale. So I do think it makes sense. I like this recommendation for that reason, because we're saying, like, what seems reasonable and what seems reasonable as far as the service we provide. And hearing you say that, knowing that you're the one that's, behind the projects and trying to make it all fit, that means a lot, I think, to us. We really appreciate the work that you do. It sounds like, I think we're comfortable with moving a motion and a second to move this as a replace or renew oh my goodness. Thank you. Replace and increase for the 5 years like it currently is to the agenda.
Second.
Thanks, Dave.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, moving on. I don't see rubbish. Oh, utilities.
All right, well, talking about funding for things, we're going to talk about the stormwater management funding here. So currently, we know we have a levy, and a suggestion was floated of making it a flat $5 fee that would come on your water bills. And Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, there are other municipalities doing it. In Louisville, we have Louisville's ordinance. This is not a novel concept, so there are other municipalities that are doing it. And the data that I've seen, the numbers that I've seen is it is relatively similar in the amount of money that it brings in. And in the end, it eliminates a levy. And anything that I'm missing, Ben?
So just like our street levy, our storm sewer levy is up at the end of this year. So if nothing is done this year, there will be no storm water money next year. The proposal is, instead of renewing the levy, transitioning to a $5 a month flat monthly fee which would be billed through our utility billing structure that we already have. How we came to that $5 number is that given the number of customers we currently have, $5 a month would raise just slightly less than what the current 1 mil levy raises, like $2,000 less. But your average homeowner will pay just slightly less than they would if we renewed the 1 mil, or replaced the 1 mil, sorry. So according to the county auditor's office, the average value that the auditor places on a home, not that a realtor would place on your home, but that an auditor places on your home, is about $177,000 in the city. So if you put on a 1 mil levy and then average that out over 12 months, you would pay $5.16 a month. So it would be just slightly cheaper for most homeowners, but raise about the same amount of money we raise now. And anticipation of the questions that are about to follow, again, we invited Rob here tonight to answer the question of, is this sufficient?
Yeah.
May I add, again, just like street levy is restricted for street paving only, stormwater levy or stormwater money, regardless if it's a levy or if it's a fee, it is restricted by its use as well. It has to be catch basins, curb, gutter, anything that's stormwater management related. No salaries, no personnel, those sorts of things. It's all project related, the same.
Thank you.
Was there another slide?
Oh, yes, sorry.
You just explained that. Yeah, so we'd be looking at, again, roughly the 400,000 a year. We can make that work. I look at the condition of our drainage system in general in the city. You know, a couple years ago in May, the northern part of the city was hit with an event that was literally a 1 in 1,000 year event. Our storm sewer pipes are designed to handle a storm 1 in 10 year frequency. But the retention ponds are designed basically to handle a 1 in 100 year storm. When you look at the damage that we had, yeah, we had a couple isolated incidents, but those were because not that our system failed, that the rainfall event greatly exceeded what they were designed to handle. It's just not feasible to design your pipes to handle a 1,000-year storm. Every road would cost millions and millions of dollars to build, and you'd have 8-foot diameter pipes. So in looking at the money that the stormwater utility, for lack of a better term, would bring in, we feel that really our drainage is in pretty good shape. Our storm sewer pipes, our guys, the street department televises them, cleans them. We've got a couple projects, one on Woodrow, one down on Knoll, that they're gonna do in-house this year, rather than contracting those out. Since I've been here, we really haven't done a storm sewer project just because our storm sewer failed. When you look at that 1,000-year storm we had, I think we had one little sinkhole in the backyard open up because, I mean, our system did awful good. You look at other communities, roads were washed away and whatnot. We really came through it well. Obviously, no one was hurt or anything. Both properties was damaged, but again, that's because the ponds straight up, directly above them just couldn't handle the water from 1,000-year back. So, and then last year, we were able to clean the Dogwood Basin and the 7th Street Basin. We talked about how many thousands of yards of material we took out of it. So really, I think where we need to focus, Gina had said it, was the curb and gutters. It's the amount of salt we put down, those concrete curb and gutters on a lot of our residential streets are really starting to deteriorate. And we've done a lot in the last few years where we go in before we pave, we remove the curb and gutters and get just a concrete contractor in there to put them back. Our street department has done a lot of it. They have a small curb machine now, and we're looking forward to doing more. So we feel that the $5 a month will keep us going for a while and really concentrate on the curb and gutters, and then the street department, obviously, when the salt gets to the catch basin and you see it collapse with a cone on it, they do that with their.
You know how many catch basins you did last year?
I would have to ask Matt, because when we did 1 year 30 before we even paid our payment program. Probably 3 dozen, if I go about it.
I think you're right, about 35 or 36 catch basins were.
Now, you say it would keep us going, but is that enough? Again, it goes back to.
It's never enough. We kind of lucked out this year with the mild winter. There wasn't as much salt applied, so those curbs are getting iffy. Didn't really deteriorate.
Right.
But we feel and one of the other things we've done with paving is make that just paving. When I came here, it kind of drove me crazy that the paving contract had more money in concrete than it did asphalt. So we, separated that out. and let's let the concrete guys, experts, do the concrete work, and let the pavers just come in and pave. So we've really done that to stretch the 380 we had. And so some of our worst streets, before we do the federal paving, so North Main next year, we've got some more curb and gutter work to do, but it's in the budget. Even our neighborhood streets, we saw in Monticello last year, a number of catch basins were gone for the paving and stuff. And got a lot of streets this year that Marbury Mill, we're looking at, the street department's gonna get in there and attack that. We've got a lot of curbs on East Maple to do before we pave later this year. So I think we can make the 400,000. And then the way this is set up, since it's not a levy, I would think if it doesn't work, I could come and say, we need to look at raising.
So we can do this again next year.
Yeah, I would think it's something we could always raise, no different than any other utility, if we had to. Justify why we would need to, but you're not bound by that levy for 5 years.
So if you had 200 to 400,000 more than this 388, let's say we ask for, or make it an $8 fee or $10 fee instead. Does that give you funding to prevent the next 1,000-year flood? It just can't prevent. Okay, that's what I'm looking at. Okay.
And you have to make, for example, the 7th Street Northwest base, make that bigger, we'd have to buy property. We'd have to make the hole larger.
Okay.
And whatnot, so.
Okay.
Rob, I have a question though, is that only for catch basins, curb and gutter? Can you use this money for something like that?
For the basins, yeah, anything drainage related, we can use it. When I look at the storm sewer system, I'm not an attorney, but that storm sewer system is your curb and gutter, your catch basins and manholes, your piping system, and then your outlets, usually outlet to the basins, that then flow through more pipes to get to the Zimmer Ditch and Michelle Creek. So really, from where that raindrop hits on our road and gets in the curb and gutter till it's in the creek, I would say anything in between is fair game.
I can't hear you, Kath.
And what we did the dogwood with that basin?
Yes, we that, we use storm sewer, we use storm sewer.
Mayor had a good question as well. So the $5 flat per month that we're proposing would be for residential property. The commercial properties would be based on impervious square feet of land. So obviously the Hoover building would be a much higher rate based on how much impervious land they have. And there's a model, chapter 9, what is our 935 and 945 in the city that was proposed to you, or we can send that to you if you haven't seen that. And it just sort of shows like up to 10,000 square feet, it would be the $5 a month of impervious land, the parking lot is impervious land. I can't see through, obviously. If it's 10 to 20,000 or 10 to 25,000, it would be a little bit, it's scaled.
Yeah.
25 to 50 is $10, 50 to 100,000, 20, 1,001 square feet and up is $40.
And I don't think the 400 that we would roughly raise with the $5 a month includes these commercial ones.
No, our estimate is just straight $5. The commercial will add to that, but to be frank, the 10,000 square feet is the size of an R70 residential lot. We don't have lots and lots of commercial properties that are massive paved areas. So while it will go up, it will not be another $100,000.
What type of land?
One other question, Ron, can you recall how many volumes of dirt we removed from our 2 basins?
Memorized, it was a neat fact. I don't recall what it was. It was significant, especially dogwood.
Yes.
In the maybe 1 million gallons or something that we had.
I remember you telling me it was like over 1 million gallons.
Pretty impressive number. So it was a lot more than we thought. 7 wasn't as bad.
I think it's a great idea. It's one less levy to do with, you
I think as
know?
long as we can get out in the sun and other areas, residents understand that it's not really an increase.
No, it's a decrease.
in amount.
Right. It's a,
And we're still trying to balance the top line expenditures, make sure we balance the bottom.
right.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? So with that, I would move that we authorize legislation for council agenda for the creation of a flat monthly stormwater fee for property within the city.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I do want to make a correction to the calendar coming up. So on the 8th, we will have no council meeting. It'll be moved to the 15th.
We'll need a motion and a vote to make that change.
I'll make the motion to adjust that.
Wait, I'm talking the 8th, okay, the 8th,
Next Monday.
no meeting next week. So, as you made a motion, yes, second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Make a motion to adjourn.
I believe the mayor had two things he wanted to share, if you're willing to give him time.
Thank you for your time. Just a couple of things, you know. We had a longtime resident pass away this last week, Judge John Miller. He was a longtime resident. He had lived on Woodrow for a while and then was down in a condo off of 1616 South Main. His last few years with his wife Phyllis were at the Sanctuary Grant. But his funeral is tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And I just wanted to pass that out. But he was a great man, an advocate for juvenile justice, and an integral part of our community. And he passed away. And last but not least, as we're all looking towards April the 8th, if you don't know what that is, Eclipse Day, our contact with the North Canton Library, Amber Olis. So this Thursday at 12:30, right here at the Civic Center, our residents can learn about the Northeast Ohio's total solar eclipse. Mark, who I don't know his last name is, but he's going to talk about the solar eclipse coming through our area. So that's going to be at right here, April 4th, Thursday at 12:30 at our Civic Center. So if you want to know about the total solar eclipse, our connection with the North Canton Public Library, our senior center program, it'll be right next door here. So for that, I'll be quiet.
And one more thing, that Easter egg hunt that took place on Saturday, sponsored by Myers, and, you know, the city of North Canton, there were several people there. It went over really, really well. So, and I think, Melissa and I were badgering ideas about the fireworks, and I think you were right, because I think I already have a couple donors. So, we can go from there.
We had 6,000 names
6,000.
and they're all gone.
Yeah. And it was a miserable day.
It was a miserable day.
Some of us didn't wear a costume, but
I know some people may not have gotten all their eggs right at the right time. So
But-
we do the best we could under those
yeah, that was a nice event.
It was a great team effort with us and Myra and volunteers.
Yep.
Now I'm done, Mr. President.
Yes, we're done.
Anyone else? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.